Okay, so we're continuing with Path of Least Resistance. We're on chapter 16, page 227. Strategic moments. Apparent lack of progress. In the creative process, there are certain strategic moments in which it seems as if you're either standing still or even going backward. These moments of apparent lack of progress are strategic because the actions you take at such moments will largely determine whether or not you are ultimately successful. A novice hiker backpacking in the Appalachian Trail was standing on top of one mountain. The peak of a neighboring mountain seemed only half a mile away. He set out in the direction of the second mountain, only to find himself in a valley much deeper than he had expected. He had already walked at least 2 miles. From his vantage point in the valley, it appeared that he was now farther away from the second mountaintop than when he had first seen it. Often you assume that you are closer to your desired result than you actually are. When the novice backpacker was in the valley, it seemed to him that he was farther from his destination than he had been when he started, but actually he was closer. He had not moved away from the second mountaintop, losing ground, but was actually moving toward it. In the same way, there are moments in the creative process when it seems that you are farther away from your result than when you began. But in fact, you are closer to it. The backpacker was at a strategic moment in his quest. He could have made either of two assumptions. He could have assumed that the path that seemed to lead toward the mountain was actually leading him away from the mountain, or he could have assumed that the second peak was farther away than he had first thought. Of course, he realized that the second assumption was true and the first was false. However, the situation in the creative process is not always as clear as it was for the backpacker. When you attempt to move in the direction of results you want, there are times when you discover that the route to those results is more involved or longer than you originally thought. Let me read that again. When you attempt to move in the direction of results you want, there are times when you discover that the route to those results is more involved or longer than you originally thought. The difference between our mountain example and the creative process is that the backpacker knew that if he continued walking, he would eventually reach the second mountaintop. At such a strategic moment in the creative process, it is not always clear that you will reach the result you have in mind. Time delay. When you first begin to make changes in your life, there's often a delay between the time you initiate the change and the time you begin to see the results of the change. If you train assembly line employees at an automotive plant, there will be a time delay before the improvement in quality is realized in the manufacture of the vehicles. There will be another time delay between the increase in manufacturing quality and the market's perception of it, as reflected in the increased sales. Often, a result does not immediately follow the action you take to bring about the result. Therefore, it is possible to initiate effective changes, but not know for a period of time that they are effective. If you go on a diet, you expect to lose weight. But if you eat a very big meal just before going on a diet, you might actually gain weight on the first day of your diet. At this point, your immediate temptation would be to conclude that dieting causes a weight gain, or that this diet does not work for you. What's really going on, however, is that the result of the diet has not yet had a chance to appear. There's a time delay between action and result. The way you define results is a crucial part of the creative process. If you had defined gaining weight, which is the result of eating a big meal, as if it had been the result of beginning your diet, you would probably have stopped the diet. Because of time delay, people often give up taking actions that are in fact effective, but the result of those actions has not yet had a chance to appear. The meaning you give to the actions you take can contribute either to building or to reducing momentum. Considering the factor of time delay can help you describe current reality more accurately. If you inaccurately assess the effectiveness of the actions that might ultimately work, you will tend to stop taking that action. Action produces a result. A result gives rise to a definition or meaning. How you define the relation between the action you take and the result you observe affects your future action. It also affects your momentum. In the creative orientation, when you move toward the full accomplishment of the result you choose, there may be delays along the way. For some people, these cause great frustration and trepidation. But as you continue to move forward toward your result, these moments often become strategic, for they present important opportunities to catalyze the creative process. Where you are in your life, you are obscuring a clear view of current reality, But as you continue to move forward toward your result, these moments often become strategic, for they present an important opportunities to catalyze the creative process. Where you are in your life, you are observing a clear view of current reality. A young woman took her first job. Gosh, I'm sorry if you find yourself, I think I've skipped a part, haven't I? Can you stop this for just a sec? Over time and with experience, the actions you have taken that are useful will begin to produce the results you desire. You will learn how to take better actions and correct your course by working with the actions you are taking that are not so useful. Resenting current reality. One of the more difficult lessons in the creative process is to learn to recognize current reality as it now is, which is often different from what you think it's supposed to be or how you want it to be. If you find yourself continually resenting the fact that your present circumstances are not what you expected, you hinder your ability to use the power of current reality fully in creating structural tension. If you are on a whitewater rafting trip, you need to be able to recognize current reality as it presently exists. When you reach the rapids, no amount of resentment that the water used to be calm and it should still be calm will help you negotiate through the rough waters and rocks. In fact, based on your inability to recognize reality immediately as it presently exists, you might find yourself in the water or on the rocks. On the other hand, if you continue to paddle as if you were still in the rapids when the raft reaches calm water, not only do you waste enormous amounts of energy, but again, you may end up in the water or on the rocks. Often, current reality will be different from what you had expected. If you continually build up resentment at the disparity, then you are no longer fully in touch with current reality. An important ability in the creative process is the ability to recognize changes in reality as they occur. Unwanted situations. A corporate executive scheduled an important meeting to improve overseas distribution of the company's electronic productions or products. 2 of the 5 company representatives from European countries were unable to attend the scheduled meeting because of a sudden snowstorm in Europe that curtailed flights. The executive decided to hold the meeting without them, but he spent the entire time resenting the fact that the 2 representatives were not present. He even seemed to take out some of his resentment on the 3 who were there. He refused to recognize and accept current reality fully for what it was, which was that he was meeting with the 3 European representatives who could attend the meeting. Because current reality often includes unwanted or unplanned for situations, you may have a tendency to avoid accepting reality as it is. This non-acceptance disempowers you, for you cannot create the result you want based on a misrepresentation of current circumstances. Analyzing current reality. Some people avoid an accurate recognition of current reality by continually analyzing current reality. Some people avoid an accurate recognition of current reality by continually analyzing how current reality got to be the way it is. The question, how did things get to be this way that they are, is a different question from what is presently going on. Many people confuse the 2 questions and so spend time futilely theorizing or explaining to themselves how they got to be where they are. A middle-aged married couple was driving to the Grand Canyon. That morning at the motel, they were told that the canyon was 4 hours away. And after 4 hours of driving, the Grand Canyon was nowhere in sight, and they were lost. Eventually, they found a service station where they got directions. But for the hour and a half it took them to drive to the canyon from the service station, they kept rehashing all the turns they had made or not made that had led them to the wrong place. And for the first half hour of their visit to the Grand Canyon, they continued to analyze how they had gotten lost. In the reactive responsive orientation, this kind of unproductive analysis is usually accompanied by the rationale that it does some good to find out how you got to where you are. Furthermore, but the fact of the matter is that you are exactly where you are. Furthermore, rehashing how you got to where you are paradoxically has the function of obscuring where you are. The conversation this couple had was useless, for it did not help them in moving from the place where they were lost to the Grand Canyon. If you find yourself repeatedly reviewing how you got where you are in your life, you are obscuring a clear view of current reality. A young woman took her first job away from a small Midwest farming community where she had been raised. When she arrived in New York, she was excited about her new life in the Big Apple. She soon discovered that many of the lessons she learned growing up were not particularly useful in Manhattan. Greeting strangers, helping people who seemed in trouble, and lending friends money and her personal possessions, actions she often took in her hometown, began to cause her problems. She soon felt unprepared for the realities of city life. She began to analyze her upbringing. She began to resent her parents and friends for their influence on her apparent naivete. She began to feel that the city and the world itself was hostile and dangerous. She began to feel like a stranger in a strange place. For months, she continued to analyze how unprepared she was to deal with the new world she found. None of this analysis helped her improve her ability to deal with her life in the city. Had she recognized that current reality included that New York was not the same as her hometown and that she did not know how to live there, she would have saved herself many hours of resentment and anger about her situation. Because she knew how to live in her hometown, she assumed she would also know how to live anywhere else. And this was not true. She reacted by attempting to learn how the situation got to be the way it was, rather than simply finding out what the new circumstances were. Often when people leave long-term relationships, the mix of emotions can make it very difficult to observe reality accurately. People might vilify each other, seek forms of revenge, and think of the other person as two-dimensional, so as to dehumanize him or her. Often the reality is this: one of the two people in the relationship wants out. In a relationship, it takes two people to say yes, but only one to say no. When a relationship ends, at least one of the two has said no. All of the feelings of abandonment, injustice, betrayal, loss, unfairness, pain, bruised egos, forced changes of lifestyles, and an uncertain future make reality to see at first. In fact, it takes a great wisdom to be able to be objective in light of such pain and confusion. But this is another aspect of learning what reality is and teaching it to yourself. Those who have become fluent in naming reality have the best chance of moving to their next step and creating what they want to create. The more directly and faster you can recognize reality as it now is, the better. This ability is especially important when current reality turns out to be different from what you had expected. Developing this ability may take a little practice. In the creative process, as you become more proficient in immediately recognizing shifts in current reality, you become better able to recognize your approach spontaneously in ways consistent with the change in circumstances. You come to recognize even sudden and unexpected changes not as detrimental, but rather as valuable and necessary feedback in the creative process. Current reality is always your new starting point. Much successful psychotherapy is based on helping individuals have a greater acceptance of their current reality. Your mental health and emotional stability are directly affected by your recognition of your present state of affairs. This means telling yourself the truth about how reality really is, without distortions from editorials and explanations about causality.